Hola a todas y a todos. Yo soy Alice y a nombre de la Cámara de Comercio Italiana en México les doy la bienvenida a esta presentación que forma parte de la cuarta edición de Encuentro Creativo, un proyecto de la Cámara Italiana apoyado por la Embajada Italiana en México, y el objetivo de Encuentro Creativo es promover la oferta académica italiana en México. Doy una calurosa bienvenida a todos ustedes a esta sesión titulada I've Seen It Already. Tenemos el honor de tener aquí con nosotros Daniele Davitti por parte de Polimoda. Les cuento un poquito de Polimoda y después paso a presentar a Daniele. Polimoda, que es donde Daniela y yo trabajamos, es una institución educativa, una de las instituciones educativas más prestigiosas del mundo en el ámbito de la moda. Es ubicada en Florencia, en Italia, y ofrece programas académicos que abarcan todas las áreas del sector, desde diseño, marketing, comunicación, hasta gestión empresarial y tecnología de la moda. Fundada en 1986, Polimoda se distingue por su enfoque innovador y su conexión con la industria global, proporcionando a los estudiantes una experiencia formativa que combina la tradición artesanal italiana, las últimas tendencias tecnológicas y las últimas tendencias y también las tecnologías del mercado. Doy la bienvenida a Daniele. Si quieres decir hola. Y yo después empiezo presentando quién eres. Bueno, I said that if you want to say hola or hello, and then I will say something about you.
Hello, everyone. Lamentablemente, yo no hablo español. So the whole thing
Okay.
will be in English, but I'm sure, I hope it will be interesting for you all.
Okay. Thank you very much. ¿Quién es Daniele? Bueno, Daniele es un artista textil y profesor de estética de la moda en Polimoda. Nació en Florencia en 1986, se graduó en diseño de moda en Polimoda y ahora es profesor aquí. En 2008 estudió en el Bunka Fashion College en Osaka, en Japón, donde fue influenciado por la estética del wabi-sabi y los principios de Mottainai que destacan en su obra. Al regresar a Italia en 2009, Daniele presentó su primera exposición dei valori perduti, seguida de numerosas exposiciones colectivas e individuales, incluida Immaculate Decade en Nueva York en 2013. En 2016 se trasladó a Melbourne para enseñar ilustración en White House Institute of Fashion Design, profundizando en la naturaleza y la botánica. En septiembre de 2019 regresa a Italia y presenta Mortalia Cura, una retrospectiva de obras creadas en Asia, Europa, Australia y América. Esta exposición marcó su transición de la pintura al arte textil y el bordado, que es su enfoque actual. En 2024, Daniele fue uno de los 50 artistas seleccionados por la Bienal Contextile en Guimarães, en Portugal. No sé si lo pronuncié bien, pero perdón. Es profesor en Polimoda en estética de la moda y creó el curso Book of Mistakes, un programa multidisciplinario de arte e ilustración centrado en la artesanía, tecnologías analógicas y materiales reciclados. Así que, Daniele, si vienen aquí a estudiar en Italia, lo van a encontrar. Ahora voy a darle la palabra. So, Daniele, now I leave you the stage and you can start with your presentation and sharing your screen.
Perfection. So let's share the screen. Just a second.
Yes.
And we can start. Alors. Here and here. Alors. Tell me then if we can see that.
Yes. And just go on presentation. Yes. Okay, we see well.
Allora, let's move this down and we can start.
Yes.
Dov'è? Condividi schermo, sì.
We already see your screen.
Perfection. Okay, is that
Perfect.
okay?
You can start. Yes.
We can start. So, good day, everyone. Nice. I'm very, very happy to be here. And I don't know if you had the chance of again reading a little bit of what we're gonna talk about today. Alice was so kind actually to introduce me. I am an artist. I am a lecturer of aesthetic, and I like to define myself a free thinker. This idea that I am either an artist and a professor is the reason why I can talk about the specific topic of our meeting, which is called I Have Seen It Already. For every person, basically, that works in the field of art, of fashion, of any kind of creativity, this very word is literally a curse. This expression. Whenever you are studying fashion and you are presenting your work, the worst feedback, the worst ever, is I've seen it already. Why? Because creative people are always expected to be original. We are paid to be original, to be innovative, to bring the innovation to the table. And this can also be a thing that frustrates a lot creative people, that stress a lot people, that brings a lot of anxiety to people. So when they told me about making a lecture, I was like, okay, I will do a lecture, but I want to talk about that. I want to be very honest with you and talk about how the industry creates novelties and how innovation really happens. Because when we talk about innovation, we have a big problem that if you study the history of art or the books, it is always very wrong how people did that. If you read really the narrative of it, one morning, one person woke up and they invented that thing like that from scratch. I can think about how we teach Picasso to the people. You know, Pablo Picasso, one morning in Paris, invented Cubism. It never happened like that, never overnight. Any kind of innovation, every kind of novelty is always happening because something else was already there. So today, our journey will take us in the world of music, in the world of art, in the world of photography, and in the world of fashion, when we will meet innovative people, very big, first-class player, innovative people, and we will try to understand how they did it. As you can see on the screen, I do have a tiny quotation, which is always the thing that I like to start with. It's a quotation from a great French director and cinema critic. It's Jean-Luc Godard. The one said, it's not where you take the things from, it's where you take them to. So it's not really the idea that has to be innovative, it's what you do with the idea. Allora, without any further hesitation, we can start. And I wanted to start with something that maybe it's possible that a lot of you have seen. This is a thing really that happens like yesterday almost. This is Sabrina Carpenter at the VMAs 2024 wearing a Bob Mackie dress. It is so funny because while I was putting this lecture together, I saw this image and I was like, thank you, Sabrina. We are going with that. Sabrina Carpenter is wearing this dress, and she was an instant sensation. The whole world was talking and tweeting and reposting these looks. And she looks great. Sabrina looks great with this dress. But the things that maybe not everyone knows about is that this dress was not designed exactly for Sabrina. This dress was originally designed for Madonna. And that is where our conversation will start. Allora, whenever we want to create something new, something groundbreaking, the idea that I do have for all my students is don't stress too much, but start studying. That's the first thing. Innovation always takes study. And this, I'm saying that also if some of you is interested or is thinking about studying fashion, coming to Polimoda, great idea. You will have to study a lot. I just want to be very, very, very honest. Let's start not from Sabrina, but from the original candidate for that dress. That dress, as you can see, was originally designed by Bob Mackie for Madonna in the 90s. And Madonna is, without any doubt, one of the most famous icons in the history of the 20th century music. The idea of Madonna in this year is very interesting because in the early 90s, Madonna was not really a particularly famous singer. She was starting really to have an important career, but she was not a global phenomenon. In her initial part of her career, indeed, she was associating a lot with a specific thing. That specific thing is the world of the Hollywood Golden Age. The Hollywood Golden Age is a specific moment in the history of the American cinema that basically goes from the year 1930s to the year 1960s. You may have heard about actresses like Marilyn Monroe, Marlene Dietrich, Elizabeth Taylor, Grace Kelly. All these people are from the Hollywood Golden Age. It's interesting. What was Madonna trying to do? Madonna was trying to basically steal a little bit of the glamour of that world, as Sabrina Carpenter was doing exactly the same things. She was the new embodiment of the Hollywood glamour. Indeed, the character of Madonna was highly inspired by the legendary Marilyn Monroe. Marilyn Monroe, the original, the original Hollywood golden diva. Actually not. Marilyn Monroe was not the original Hollywood golden diva, as you can see by this image. There was someone else prior to Marilyn Monroe. That person was Jean Harlow. And I don't know if you've ever had the chance of seeing an image of Marilyn Monroe before being Marilyn Monroe, but I can tell you that she looks very different. You can see the original Marilyn Monroe, Norma Jean Mortenson Baker Monroe versus Marilyn Monroe. Now, you look at this girl, Norma Jean, she looks very beautiful. She has a lot of potential. She is fantastic. But that sweet and honest brunette is very, very, very far away from the sexy, golden diva that we all know Marilyn Monroe to be. So what have happened to Marilyn Monroe? Jean Harlow happens to Marilyn Monroe. Indeed, the look of the Hollywood golden diva, the platinum hair, the evening gowns, the jewels, the fur coat, and all these sort of things are things that were originally created in the Hollywood studios in the 1930s. What is that I want to go? This is just an introduction to make you really understand how from the late 30s to 2024, the idea, the archetype, the look is basically always the same, but it's been transformed. First of all, we have different decade. We have the 1930s, 1950s, 1990s, and 2024. And already having the same idea in different period of time changes everything. But also we have the personality of this girl, we have their talent, we have singer, we have actresses. And that is already enough to change and move and invent a new idea that on something that already existed. If you are curious to know how much Madonna was actually associating herself with Marilyn Monroe in Hollywood, there are a lot of video that can really show you these things. One, and I am doing this job for you, is the video of the song Material Girl from 1984, so when Madonna almost just started her career. And here, close to that, you can see Marilyn Monroe in the musical number Diamonds Are the Girl's Best Friend from the movie Gentleman's Prefers Blonde, 1953. Allora, darling, I have been talking for about 10 minutes, not even, and already I've touched base on a lot of different things. That is the first things that I would like for you to remember. In order, again, to create something new, something innovative, we are starting always with study. We study, in this case, for example, the industry of cinema, but also the industry of music. The first case study that I would like actually to share with you, and then we are moving immediately to our century, is the case of the Vogue video. Vogue is a video that is still today considered one of the most famous, one of the most amazing video in the history of music. I will share now with you the video. I don't know if some of you may have seen it, some of you may have never seen it. We will watch the video and then I will share with you the inspiration behind it. Indeed, this video is based on 5 different inspirations brought together, 3 of them from the past, 2 of them from the present, the year 1990. I'm going to show you a masterpiece of video making in the world of music. As a creative, apart the fact that if we may like it or not, the interesting thing is understanding what kind of work has been done to put together that image. Like I told you, I will break down the 5 inspiration behind it for you. And the first is actually quite simple. Like I told you, in this year, Madonna was associating a lot with the American industry of the 1930s and 60s. Indeed, the first inspiration is the Hollywood Golden Age. You may have noticed, or you may have known that already from the song. Indeed, at a certain point of the song, she starts with a very long list of names: Greta Garbo, Anne Morrow, Dietrich and DiMaggio, Marlon Brando, Jean Midin, on the cover of a magazine. Who are these people? Those are some of the most representative actors and actresses of the Hollywood Golden Age. And the interesting things happens when you see how they look. You have here a selection of some of these absolute diva. You can have the Betty Davis wearing her leopard coat, the seductive beauty of Veronica Lake with the hair partially covering her face, the algid beauty of Greta Garbo, the German androgynous beauty of Marlene Dietrich, and no need for introduction for Marilyn Monroe. In this case, the genius work was that the styling of Madonna, so the hairdo, the makeup, the look of Madonna, even if set in the 1990s, were inspired by some of the greatest American actresses of that era. That is the first things. You do understand that if you want to work as a creative, you need to know all these things. You may have needed to watch all this movie and study carefully all the look of this girl in order to recreate that on the contemporary singer. The second inspiration is from the world of painting. And I don't know if you have noticed these things, but the video started actually in an art gallery. You may have noticed this. We have some paintings, as you can see in the background. Now, this painting belonged to a very, very famous Polish painter, Tamara de Lempicka. And probably some of you have had the chance of seeing the legendary de Lempicka painting. Interestingly enough, Madonna is not just a very talented artist, but also a very smart businesswoman. Indeed, around the 1980s, she started to be particularly interested in the work of female artists. And the work of Tamara de Lempicka got on her radar. Today, you can see the Lempicka painting in some of the greatest collections in the world, but I can tell you that in the 80s, when Madonna started to collect this painting, this artist was almost forgotten by the work of art. And that smart furbacchiona of Madonna did these things. She started to buy a lot of the Lempicka painting for nothing and started to put them in her video that actually had a worldwide audience. You can see the Lempicka painting in at least other 3 videos of Madonna of those years. And these things generated an interest. The figure of the Lempicka was rediscovered, the prices of the painting skyrocketed. And this actually thanks to a song. So we have, again, the rediscovery of culture and the use of painting to make music. Third inspiration from the past, and then we are moving to the present. We have the world of fashion photography. In this case, I am going to show you the work of the German-American photographer Horst Behorst, which is one of the greatest fashion photographer of especially the 1930s and 1940s. If you were studying in Polimoda, I would have told you, we have a lot of books of his work in our library because we have a gigantic library with a lot of books. And the funny thing is when you start to see how the images looked. As you can see, the light design of the video, that perfect black and white with the light from above or with the light from the side, has basically been completely inspired by the images of the great German-American photographer. Not only that, but some images have directly been restaged as a whole. In particular, you may have noticed the scene when we can see the beauty routine of Madonna with all the hands on her face. And in the final act of the video, we can see Madonna wearing this corset from above. And this is, as you can see, a clear homage to the original picture from Horst Behorst. This is the second advice that I will give to every creative to create something new. First of all, study. Second of all, mix the past and the present. One thing that we know really well in fashion is that if we only get inspired by the past, we are doing costume and not fashion. And this is a very important difference to remember. The key is always mix something from the past with something that is happening right now. And indeed, for the 3 first inspirations, cinema, painting, and photography, we have a new inspiration. This is the great contributor of one of the greatest French fashion designer of probably the panorama, the world of Jean-Paul Gaultier. I don't know how many of you have selected a specific bra. At a certain point, Madonna was doing this very, very, very iconic scene in which all the guys were turning and she revealed this very, very important double-coned bra. I never remember in which part of the video that is here. Eccola qua, super iconic, and she presents her double cone bra. This object that Madonna is wearing is considered to be one of the most iconic garment of the great French designer. The relationship between Madonna and Jean-Paul Gaultier is a very beautiful one. Very often music and fashion are actually helping each other. I don't know how many of you are familiar with Lady Gaga, but when we quote Lady Gaga, very often we also name the designer Alexander McQueen. In the case of Madonna, when Madonna started her career, she started to get dressed by Jean-Paul Gaultier, first in her video, and then later Jean-Paul Gaultier will create this very iconic golden corset that you can see in this image for the legendary Blonde Ambition tour, which would be one of the first world tour of Madonna. And this is the beauty of fashion and music working together. I, Jean-Paul Gaultier, will help you in building your image, that super Madonna image, and I, Madonna, will carry, of course, with me and my talent, your name and your talent. It's a wonderful, really, match of the music and fashion happening. They were very close in the 90s. Still today, Madonna and Jean-Paul Gaultier are very often seen together. That is the one in the picture in which they look just slightly older. Is from the Met Gala Heavenly Body, in which indeed Jean-Paul Gaultier brought Madonna as his muse. Almost done. We have the fifth and the last inspiration, still from the past. And this is the world of dancing. The song is called Vogue, so there is only one possible style of dancing, and this is obviously voguing. I don't know how many of you are familiar actually with modern and contemporary dance, but today, if you want to learn how to vogue and you are in a relatively big city, there is the possibility that in the local academy of dance, they will have some voguing course. But don't forget that here in this video, we are in the year 1990, and voguing is not a mainstream thing. Voguing is a form of dance. I would call it a form of art that exclusively exists in a tiny place in the area of Harlem in New York, in the city of New York, at the Harlem Ballroom and in a specific community, the LGBTQ plus community, mainly of Black and Latino people of New York. The world of voguing was brought to the world with a legendary documentary, the documentary Paris is Burning, that was indeed published and released in the same year of the song Madonna. Paris is Burning is a documentary that we always advise all of our students to watch. Today, probably some of you are more than familiar with RuPaul Drag Race, or maybe with the TV show Pose. Words, again, like voguing or throwing the shades, or yeah, spill the tea are expression that have entered in our daily conversation. Back then it wasn't. That whole world only happened in this tiny, tiny area of the world. It was what we can consider a subculture. Thanks to this documentary, these people for the first time had the possibility of being represented in the world of cinema. And this is very important to understand that till that point, these people would have been represented exclusively as sex workers. This legendary documentary gives to these people the possibility to be represented as artists, as human beings, as performers. Throughout the legendary documentary, you will have the chance of meeting the different houses, the house of Saint Laurent, the house of La Beija, and at a certain point, when you will meet the members of the house of Extravaganza, you will meet a young guy called Jose Gutierrez Extravaganza, which is this guy here with the little beard. Ironically enough, Jose Gutierrez Extravaganza was invited by Madonna to collaborate in her video. And indeed, we saw him. He's taking all the stage that he can in a eccolo qua, bellissimo, super bello, very young, but absolutely there. This is a perfect and wonderful example of cultural collaboration, and is another thing that I would always advise. Study, mix the past and the present, and collaborate with people. Instead of stealing, instead of plagiarizing, let's invite people over and start to work together. That is almost 100% the time when you will create something new, something unexpected. This old video of Madonna is a perfect example, really, on how the creation of new things can actually be faced in the world of music. As you can see, there are a lot of different things put together, and that's how really you get the final novelty. Here, the secrets that we always give to our student is steal from many, not from one, and do the remix and bring everything together. Create the unexpected, create the things that I've never seen before. Where before have we seen the people of the Harlem Ballroom together with the German-American photographer of 1930s? Never. That's why this video is so revolutionary and important. Allora, darlings, for the last two examples that I have, we are talking full house fashion. And like I told you, Polimoda is a fashion school. I teach fashion aesthetics, so my discipline is obviously very functional to the fashion world. I have already, let's say, shared with you some secrets, but there is someone else that can do it better than me. And this person is probably the most revolutionary designer of this last decade. I don't know how many of you are familiar with the figure of Virgil Abloh and his brand Off-White. Virgil Abloh was a sensation for the world of fashion. Unfortunately, we have lost him way too soon, but it's a guy that really, in matters of years, have revolutionized entirely the industry. Not only bringing the world of street style on the higher level of the French catwalks, because Virgil Abloh was not just the designer of Off-White, but was also the creative director of the house of Louis Vuitton. And he was the first ever black guy to do that thing. You can imagine the reputation of Virgil Abloh. Virgil Abloh is the innovator. Virgil Abloh is the novelty. Virgil Abloh is the new, is the never seen before. Or is it? The images that you're seeing now on the screen is an invitation to a legendary show that, as you can see, took place in the city of Paris, and it was the Paris Fashion Week runway show of the Woman for Winter 2017-2018 for the Off-White brand. And the title of the collection, as you can see, was Nothing New. The most innovative guy that does the Nothing New collection. Not only the title is very provocative, but also the back of the image is extremely interesting. You may recognize without any doubt the Mona Lisa of Leonardo da Vinci, but this is not that opera. This image that you see is a combination of two very important works of art of the 20th century, and those are the original. On basically the left, you can see Ella Show Q or Lock from 1919 by the great artist Marcel Duchamp. Well, on the right, you can see still from Marcel Duchamp the work called Fountain from 1917. I don't know if you can see on Fountain, there is written R. Mut 1917. That same thing has been placed on the Mona Lisa shoulder. Now, how come that a guy that is so innovative, that is so over the top, make a collection that is called Nothing New and use the work of an artist that is already there and actually quite old, because 1917, okay, this is work that is 100 years old. The answer to this question comes from an interview that Virgil Abloh released. And the point, guys, of this meeting is that I also would like to leave you something. The first things, for example, that I would advise is to watch Paris is Burning, because it's very simple to be found also on YouTube. The second thing, if you want, is to give it a shot to this interview that comes from Vestoy magazine. This is a very interesting publication from contemporary fashion that breaks down all the conversation on fashion. In Vestoy magazine, you can find, and you can, as you can see, find it from your own research, an article that is called "Does Your Jacket Have 3 Armholes?" A conversation with Virgil Abloh, creative director and founder of Off-White, by Anya Aronofsky-Kronberg, that also happens to be the editor of Vestoy. Allora, Vestoy is a really detailed and extremely well-made magazine. We are not talking about Vogue or Vanity Fair. We are talking about magazines that are for people that works in fashion. And indeed, as you can see, there is a lot of content that is going on. I want to focus on a specific tiny part of the article, the part that talks about the Nothing New collection. And I read. I did a fashion show recently called Nothing New. It was based on criticism I got from another designer. Some designer said that he was never doing anything innovative. Virgil Abloh, eh? So I took that statement and tried to unravel it and make it into a question. Does fashion have to be new? What is new anyway? Does fashion have to be new to be valid and relevant and important? People often lob the "it's been done before," which is my "I have seen it already," as a critique, but without really asking themselves those questions. Newness has become the barometer by which we judge things in fashion. I changed the concept of the show 3 weeks before presentation. We do stuff like that in fashion. So you work for months and we change everything 1 week before. To address those questions, and the show was a sort of epiphany for me. I was like, why does the fashion industry use this newness to rate whether something is good or not? Scusate, mi sono perso. Is that the only standard? I used that show to work through those questions for myself, and I realized that I'm not concerned with new. New is a farce to me, is a critique intended to keep people like me out. I'm not trying to pretend that I'm inventing something that has never been seen before. My work exists because I'm inspired by the work of others. I am inspired by the work of Ralph Simmons, for example. My archive collection is insanely personal and big. In the end, I took his criticism half seriously, though 10 times motivational, but we have talked since then. Now, darling, this is always extremely important for me to share these sort of voices to my students, because again, when we sometimes see the most innovative people in the industry, we find out that more often than not, they are just studying, transforming, remixing every idea. Let me bring you to the final idea of this invitation. This invitation is basically what we can call a shade, but a shade that goes only to the people that know the history of art. Imagine that the critique that was going around is Virgil Abloh doesn't do anything new. Virgil Abloh is just copying. Instead of denying that, Virgil Abloh ironically called the collection Nothing New. And that's already amazing. And then put himself in association with the work of Marcel Duchamp. Why Marcel Duchamp? Why not another painter? Because if you study the history of modern art, there is a before and an after Marcel Duchamp. Marcel Duchamp was indeed one of the first artists in the history of Western art to bring in the world of art the idea that art is not necessarily what you do with your hands, but what you do with your brain, which is also the idea where today contemporary art stands in the concept. The idea is more stronger than the technique. Marcel Duchamp was indeed one of the first artists to work with ready-made or objet trouvé, found object. He took object that already existed, like, for example, he went to the Louvre Museum and bought a postcard of the Mona Lisa, a thing that everyone can buy. He added a couple of mustache and a little beard and 5 letters and declared that that was art. Or was it? The point of Duchamp was this one, was to have question for the people. even more strong with fountain. He removed a toilet from a public toilet and put that thing inside of an art gallery. He signed it and put that on a support with all the light on it. And being like, okay, it's in an art gallery, it's signed, it has all the light on it. This looks a lot like real art. Is that real art? This was the huge provocation of Marcel Duchamp, and the things that really changed forever the course of art. Eccolo, Virgil Abloh. Virgil Abloh is telling us, hey guys, here is another guy that never did anything new. A guy that always worked with things that already existed. He have changed the history of art. E questo è Virgil Abloh. And this is also the reason why we miss Virgil Abloh a lot in the fashion industry today. I would like to finish. I have basically 8 minutes left. And I would like to bring it back to the year 2024, where I started with Sabrina Carpenter. 2024 has been a fantastic year for fashion, I have to say that, especially for some shows. And there was a show really that when it came out, was fantastic. It was the Maison Margiela artisanal show of 2024. I don't know how many of you interested in fashion may have seen this show. We do have John Galliano as the creative director of the house, and a show that really is already a legend. The show looked absolutely fantastic. The setting was over the top, was under a bridge in Paris. It was all foggy. Before the show, there was a short movie by the Australian director Baz Luhrmann, that is the director of the movie The Great Gatsby. I believe all of you may have watched it. It was, again, this very foggy setting, like a bar under a Parisian bar. And we have seen all this legendary, fantastic creation, looking like dolls, looking like thief, like mysterious character. Without any doubt, one of the most creative, one of the most innovative collection that we have seen in this last year, especially from a point of making of the garments, from a point of the façon, of the making, really, of the garments. That takes a very specific understanding of couture technique. But also for another reason. One of the things that really made this collection viral in matters of seconds was the makeup. The makeup that I believe probably a lot of you, or some of you, may have checked and studied. It was the legendary doll makeup by the fantastic makeup artist Pat McGrath. That is one of the greatest makeup artists probably in the world, that have collaborated with John Galliano since the years at Dior. This absolutely translucent effect was one of the most challenging things that Pat McGrath ever made in the history of fashion. And so it was the collection for John Galliano. You have to think that this makeup was so viral that when she released the video in which she was showing how to make it, she had more than 50 million views. 50 million views per libro. The interesting things of this absolutely revolutionary show, of this unbelievably revolutionary makeup, is, of course, on the enormous talent of Pat McGrath and her will always to experiment, but also, guess what, on things that already existed. Indeed, you may notice that the look of this model, either on the catwalk talking about garments, but especially on the face, on the visage, is inspired by the world of porcelain dolls. Indeed, the whole collection was structured on the research of these dolls, especially from the 19th century. That specific texture of the skin was studied for weeks to give, again, to these models exactly the feeling of porcelain dolls. Also, the hairdo of some models, as you can see, these very tiny, blonde, curly hair, or again, this extremely cloudy look, all of them actually were coming from a very deep study of the worlds of porcelain making from more or less the 19th century. We said that we should always mix things, and indeed the world of the porcelain dolls was mixed with an aesthetic. Once again, a photographer. To those of you again who are interested in studying in fashion, I will warn you, we need to study a lot. I will never stop saying this, that we need to study a lot. He's already the second photographer that I have named in less than an hour. This is the world of the Hungarian French photographer Brasset, that indeed created and gave origin to the look of the whole fashion show. You can see this very beautiful picture of these bridges with the fog that is very similar to the setting of the show. You can see all these people in costumes or wearing masks, completely covered in jewels. All these sort of images were re-elaborated and studied by John Galliano and Pat McGrath to generate again that look. Quindi porcelain dolls, photography, and the final touch. When you look at the color scheme that Pat McGrath have used, you see that it has nothing to do with the world of dolls and with the world of Brasset. Indeed, you can see yellow, you can see heavy blues, you can see heavy greens. That is because the color scheme comes from a painter. And there is the third cross-reference. This is the world of Kees van Dungen, and when you actually start to see at the legendary portraiture, especially of the 1930s, of the 1920s, you will see how Pat McGrath and John Galliano have accurately studied the color palette of Kees van Dungen and then bringing them back in the makeup of all the models. Hello, darlings. This was so far the idea that I really wanted to share with you. And it is more than anything a call that I have for those of you who are interested not only in studying fashion, but in studying art, in studying creativity. Two or three things that I was sharing with you today, these I have seen it already things. First of all, the more you study, the more you have seen a lot of things. And I have seen it already is not even a critique anymore. It's like, okay, give me a critique that is serious. I've seen it already. Tell me about the development. Tell me about, good that you see things. I want to know how to do things like that. The idea of associating your work with things, the idea of studying a lot, the idea of being able to study a lot of different things, porcelain making, makeup artist, photography, tailoring, French culture, all of these sort of things together, and then mixed and remixed, generate the novelty. Indeed, the idea of mix and remix is the real key. The idea of crediting people when we use their work, because we can use other people's work, we just need to credit that, like Madonna did inviting José Gutierrez Extravaganza in her video. They just didn't steal, they didn't stole the voguing. They invite the voguer to do it. And of course, the possibility of transforming things from a doll to a makeup, from a form of dancing to a form of music. I would like then to finish my speech with the final recommendation. This is a very, very famous quotation from the writer Jonathan Lethem, that once about, again, this originality, this novelty, said this phrase: when people call something original, 9 out of 10 times, they just don't know the reference or the original source involved. And this is the thing. The key why we should all learn to study and study the subject is basically this one, that again, if you want to create something new that has never been seen already, that's basically the way to do it. Thank you all actually for listening to all these things. Now I give back the words to Alice. So in case also you do have some Q&A or any kind of information that you want, we are here for you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Daniele. It was really, really interesting. I hope you all enjoyed this presentation. Daniele, if you want to close the share of your screen so we can see you again. Okay. So Daniele, we have questions. Do you want me to read the questions or you can see them on the Q&A? Yeah, I will read it. Lady Joanna asks, how do you think artistic proposals such as the reinterpretation of religious or cultural symbols achieve a balance between creative innovation and respect for traditional values, considering the controversy they often generate in fashion and art?
Indeed, that's a great question. That's the question actually about in these things. This is the kind of question that very often I got after this meeting also at school. We all know, and I believe I'm reading a little bit of what you are writing there, that you all know that we live in a world of cultural appropriation, when this sort of conversation has been very important. Indeed, before I talk about cultural collaboration. It is very true that the world of art and fashion can be sometimes on a very, very thin line between provocation and other things. In my personal opinion and in my personal experience, there is one thing that usually should lead us, which is good sense. Cioè buon sense, so being reasonable. There are certain kind of topics that we can use, yes, but with a higher level of respect, cioè understanding really that, for example, you were mentioning religion, that if a certain symbol or a certain things is sacred for some people, maybe we should not use that to decorate underwear. I don't know, you know what I mean. And that's a thing, unfortunately, that we've seen happening very often in fashion, cioè people deserve scandals and deserve apologies because maybe people really have treated a certain important, delicate, and relevant topic in a very, very superficial way. The study in that case is the answer, because sometimes when you really study a topic, you understand, it's like, okay, I thought it was a whatever thing. This is a big thing. Maybe we should change the approach to it.
Thank you. Maya asks, can you repeat the name of the photographer that was represented in the Vogue video, please?
Yes. The photographer, can you see my screen? No?
No.
Because it's, I'm so sorry, it's a German name. So I'm just sharing briefly the screen so that you can see it. It's Horst Behorst.
Okay.
Quite interesting. If you are interested in, I don't know if you can see that.
Okay, yes, now we can see it.
It is also, if you want to then study about this video, you will see that that actually Madonna indeed didn't ask for permission to Horst per Horst, and she had later to pay the right to his images.
Oh.
It's also a legal thing that, again, the question that we have is really on point.
Wow. Luisa Fernanda asks, no, she doesn't have any question. She just want to thank you for the interesting speech. And she knew the many things and interpretation. You knew. Oh. I know she knew many things and interpretation, but I think that you gave her a lot of new information. Ariel asked, sorry, Daniele, you were saying something?
No, I was thanking her.
Okay, sorry. Ariel asks, when can we consider that something is inspired by or just a copy?
That's the $1 million question, because in art, in fashion, we live, you all know, in a world where plagiarism is everywhere. So I believe all of you know about Temu, Shein, Zara, H&M, and that is sometimes pure plagiarism. Again, the things that I was sharing with you, those keywords are done because of that reason. This idea of crediting people, the idea of transforming people or transforming the things that you use, that is where you actually start to put yourself in it, is the interpretation. To me, was very interesting, and I don't know if you have seen the same dress, Bob Mackie, Sabrina Carpenter and Madonna. The dress is exactly the same, is the original, but they wear it in such a different way. The styling is different. The whole personality of the two women is so different that's the point. Is also what we do with those information, knowing also again that there are law against the violation of copyright and plagiarism. So that's the point. The history of human culture has always been about that. It's a fluid things with before and after. The idea again is to study, to transform, to remix, and again to interpretate. Because even if we are all working maybe with the same idea, then the personality of the creative will usually transform that into a completely different things. Sometimes we have lazy artists or lazy brand that just take the thing and they copy it, and that is a law violation. So don't do that.
Ezekiel asks, what do you think is a common mistake when we are mixing references from the 3 points you mentioned?
A mistake that can happen when we start to use this way of working, you mean?
Ezekiel, maybe you can write on the chat, what do you mean? So we can reply proper to your question. Natalie asks, can you recommend me a book to study? And maybe, Daniele, you can mention our library.
Oh, yes,
Again.
that would be juicy. Before, indeed, I did that when I was talking about horse per horse. That is a thing, the study. It is, of course, at the beginning when you start studying fashion art, obviously you need some people that guides you. Check that, check this. In Polimoda, for example, we have one of the biggest library themed in fashion in the entire European continent. And sometimes people are like, are people still reading books? Yes, because of how deep the information in books are. I'm sure all of you maybe read about fashion or get podcasts. So we have a million of different ways, of course, to get fashion or art content. Without any doubt, the book is still an unbelievably relevant one because it gets so in depth. Allora, talking about one book that I can advise for you. Oh, that would be complicated. All the name that I was having today, you can probably find books about them. The case of Vestoy, I actually had the Vestoy magazine here. This is a huge fashion publication. When I told you there is not Vogue, I mean that. There is literally a book for fashionista. I would also, and here is my turn to credit a book that I think is so funny, which is called Still Like an Artist by Austin Kleon. I can write it maybe in Still Like an Artist by Austin Kleon. This is a very funny book for creative that is basically more or less what I just told you today, cioè the proper way to study, to be creative, but stealing properly, not copying. So I would just maybe give it a shot to that little book. It's so funny and it has a lot of mini creative challenges that if you're interested can be a thing.
Thank you. Camila asks, how do you know when something is interesting enough to inspire from?
And that's another good one. I like this question a lot. Allora, that is, I have to be honest with you. This is a thing that in my experience, a lot happened with instinct. This is really a thing that more often than not, creative tends to have with instinct. Let's say that generally talking, creative people tends to be very curious. So that is something that you always give it a shot to. Let me check those pictures. Let me check that music. Let me check that movie. Then sometimes you see something and and you are kind of attracted towards that things. To be like, I don't know why, but there is something in that image that touches my imagination, that maybe resonate with you. That's where the creative gets in the scene, because you are the person that select. Honestly, we can work on everything that has already been done, but again, Virgil Abloh choose to study and work on Marcel Duchamp. They choose to work on Tamara de Lempicka. Lapath McGrath choose the color of Kees van Dungen. Why not another painter? Because probably the color palette of Kees van Dungen resonate with her. Probably she felt something there that she liked. That's where the creative gets in the scene. And I more often than not will advise people to follow your instinct, because it's something that you tend to feel in your gut. So if you are attracted, go. There is something there.
Okay. We have lots of questions. Danny asks, how I found the correct form to innovate and create a revolution in this industry?
Huh. That takes years to answer this question, I'm afraid. Because probably this question comes from someone that I believe may know this industry and the problematics that the industry is having on a global scale. The big problem that, in my opinion, the fashion industry is dealing with in this specific moment is that we do have a very strong commercial force from one side. So we see that money is an important thing in fashion, which as always was. Right? There was never a moment in which money were not important in fashion. Today, we are seeing a lot of creative decision taken almost exclusively on an economical perspective. Well, maybe in the past, there was more the possibility of risking something. In my opinion, the innovation would stand there. Always, of course, never underestimating the profitable aspect of the industry, but also opening a little bit the gates again to risking. I can really think about some legendary designer. Uh, well, the John Galliano. I was naming Galliano for Margiela. When Galliano released his second collection, he basically didn't have any budget left. He didn't have money, zero. And a lot of people believed in him. They risked a lot. Anna Wintour put his collection on Vogue. I believe it was something like 12 pages spread. And the guy didn't even have a brand yet. And it's like, are you out of your mind? You are promoting a designer that basically we don't even know if he will be a designer or not. But Anna Wintour understood probably that there was something there. The supermodels, Naomi Campbell, Linda Evangelista, they worked for him for free because they thought that that guy was probably an innovator. I wonder if these things would have happened today in the world of fashion. I strongly doubt it. And that's probably sometimes we see in the fashion world, some brands playing very, very safe and so not that innovative. Personal opinion, eh?
Thank again, Daniele. We have 5 minutes left, so I will read some of the questions. One is from Regina. How do you feel about how Balenciaga is nowadays? Do you think that's innovation? Because I'm having a hard time understanding now the brand, because Balenciaga in the beginning was just so amazing and classy.
Allora, Regina, let's talk about something. I have an entire lesson specifically for this topic, Polimoda. My lesson usually lasts 2 hours. And allora, I believe you are probably Balenciagas, like I am. In my personal case, Balenciaga, Cristobal Balenciaga, the Balenciaga, is the best things that have ever happened in the history of fashion. I think really that there is almost nothing better that happened. And the work that Demna Vasalia is doing right now to the house of Balenciaga has a reason to be. A lot of people are like, oh, they're just doing random thing. They are not doing random thing. They have an idea behind how that Balenciaga should look, apart from the scandal. I don't want to go there. but that specific look has a reason to be. That has a lot to do with the contemporary approach to fashion and also with the approach that Demna Vasalia had on his first brands, Vetements. The case of Cristobal is this one. Balenciaga, you probably know, people knows that in the past was the most luxurious brand in the world. More than Dior, more than Chanel, more than Balmain. There was nothing comparable to the level of exclusivity of Balenciaga. I believe, and in more than one interview, Demna Vasalia said these things, that that time, that world will never be back. Never. That world is in the past. So pretending to be Balenciaga, pretending to be Cristobal would have never made sense. And on this extension, I like him because you are not even trying to be Balenciaga. Bravo. Because only Balenciaga is Balenciaga. Amongst the things that used to be the Balenciaga thing of the past, he kept only two elements that you can actually see in the brand. One is the study of the volume of Balenciaga, that you may like it or not, but is a thing that is still an identifier of the brand. The big shoulder spec, the baggy things, the oversized, the gigantic shoes, all that sort of things has a reason to be aesthetically talking. And they are part of the research that Cristobal did in the 50s and in the 60s. So in ages in which all the other designers were working on the shape of the human body, he was inventing new shape. The second thing that Demna Vasalia is still using of Cristobal is the reputation as the rule breaker of fashion, because today we perceive Cristobal Balenciaga as the master of fashion, but when he started in France, he was a complete outsider. First of all, he was a Spanish guy doing a French thing, and this already was making him an outsider. Second of all, the garments, they were the typical couture garments. In the eye of Cristobal were completely different. Like I said, instead of working with embellishment and structure, Balenciaga was working with silhouettes and volumes. And he was really a rule breaker, a groundbreaker back in his days. I believe that Demna Vasalia, either if we like him or not, can be considered the rule breaker of fashion because he literally broke all the rules. Then, just to finish, and just between us, do I like what Demna Vasalia is doing to Balenciaga? No. That's the point. But my job as an aesthetic professor is not to like things. That's a personal thing of Daniele. My job is to understand why certain things look like that. And that is also what I teach. So in that class of Balenciaga, the things that I do is this one is to explain the creative direction, why things looks like that, why models looks like that, because the models of Balenciaga are not canonic, beautiful people, and they don't look beautiful for a reason. Then if we like it or not personally, that's a completely different story.
Thank
Nice
you very
question.
much,
Love all this.
Daniele. Thank you very much, everyone, for all these questions. You can make all the questions to Daniele when you will be a Polimoda student, or just write, and we will reply to you. We don't have any time, but I would like to, well, I switch in Spanish. Sorry, Daniele. Los quiero invitar a un evento que estamos organizando en la Ciudad de México el próximo sábado. Es una Polimoda Open Day y vamos a hablar de todos los cursos. Van a estar dos profesores, una profesora de design y un profesor de business. Van a conocer todos los cursos y también van a tener una ponencia muy interesante como la que tuvo Daniele hoy. Ahora le dejo el link para registrarse y muchísimas gracias de verdad por esta interesante sesión. Esperamos que resulte provechosa para acercar a los estudiantes mexicanos y al público en general a los nuevos conceptos. En nombre de la Cámara de Comercio Italiana en México, me gustaría expresar mi gratitud por su presencia a esta sesión y extiendo mi agradecimiento a todas las marcas que formaron parte de Encuentro Creativo, entre ellas Essilor Luxóptica, Fénix, Lavazza, Orfe México, Ferrari, Max Mara, entre otras. Y recuerdo algo muy importante que Este año hemos lanzado un concurso en colaboración con Luxóptica que se llama Let's Vogue, y con ganando este concurso pueden ganar un curso de 4 semanas en Polimoda. En la página web de Encuentro Creativo encuentran en unas horas o en unos días toda la información, pero tienen que participar al 50% de las ponencias y tener otros requisitos. De verdad, muchísimas gracias. Thank you very much, Daniele, and it was really inspiring your lesson. And see you in Mexico City. And Daniele, again, thank you very much.
Thank you all. It was a pleasure. And thank you for your question. They were very on point. I love them.
Ciao, grazie.
Ciao.